Unfound Live for April 8th of 2024. And for all of you, of course, right in here waiting, I saw you're waiting there in the waiting room, I guess. You're seeing this background and thinking, well, what the heck is going on here? And, well, I have a story for you, of course, for tonight. But even though I am in a secret location, I'm going to eventually tell you where I am. This is no different than any other live show. I hope you will, as the show continues tonight, I hope you will give it a thumbs up. And if you're not yet a subscriber to this channel, please consider doing so. And maybe while you are watching tonight, you can hit the super chat button below if you'd like to monetarily contribute to what we do here at Unfound on a daily basis. And then that's the little super chat button. That's a little square with a little dollar sign in the middle. I'd greatly appreciate that if you enjoy the content that is here on YouTube or, of course, the podcast that comes out every Friday. And then another way you can contribute to what we do here at Unfound is by hitting the join button below and becoming a full-blown supporter of what we do here. And then you get, of course, some special things because of that. And it's only $2.99 a month. So I have a fantastic show lined up for you tonight, as the headline, as the description for this live show says. I want to talk about this LA heist that occurred within this past week. Who doesn't love a heist story? Also going to talk about Puff Daddy or P. Diddy, whatever you, Sean Combs, whatever you want to call him, and the allegations against him regarding prostitution and sex trafficking, etc. And we're going to maybe look at this in a bigger picture, maybe going, maybe we want to take on a little bit of a conspiracy that's been out there for a conspiracy, a theory among conspiratorial type people regarding rich people, famous people, and do they have a role in this sex trafficking, or is this just your middle class and lower class people that are involved in this, or is these claims against Sean Combs something that is a sign of maybe something bigger? And then I'm also going to do a follow-up on the story I covered last week about these two women who went missing. And now that I've had a chance to look at the map and read a little bit more, give you a few more insights into all of that. Now, what's going to be a little tough for me tonight is that I am using my tablet to do the show tonight. And so regarding all the chat, I can't as easily see it. So I have to actually touch this screen to be able to see it and see who everybody's in here. So please bear with me as I do this. This is the first time that I've ever used this tablet to do the live show, but I'm doing so because now to reveal what's going on, if some of you don't know, last night, about a year ago, my brother Brian and his wife bought an RV, a used one, but it's very, very nice. It's about 12 years old. It's been kept in really, really good condition. It's about 36 feet long. Yes, it's pretty big. And it can sleep multiple people. It has a washer and dryer in it. It has a shower, it has a toilet, refrigerator, microwave, sink, all of these things. And they'd been talking about doing this for a long time, and finally they did this about a year ago. Well, just because of schedules and everything else, I never have had a chance to take a ride in it. So finally, Brother Brian and I got this all lined up over a year later. Although I'd seen it and I'd been in it, I'd not gone anywhere in it. I'd not ridden in it or anything until last night. So after I did the think tank, patreon.com/unfound podcast, where the think tank happens. After the think tank last night, I drove over to his place, put my stuff together, then drove over there, and we jumped in the RV. And we are on a little bit of a trip around southern Florida right now. And so we took off on the I-4. There was a lot of construction on the I-4. But we got over to like Daytona Beach. I went to a Buc-ee's for the first time. And then we went south from there on the 95 past Daytona Beach and pulled into a truck stop, slept there, then got up this morning and we went and played disc golf at F. Burton Smith Disc Golf Course. I've never played there before, which is in Cocoa, Florida. And then we went even further south. We went to about Melbourne, and Brian met up with a buddy of his, from way, 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 way. Remember, my brother Brian's about 18 years older than I am, but friends from way back, like 1960s and 70s. We met up with him and hung out for a little bit. And then now the RV is parked in the driveway of one of my brother's cousins. I guess technically then my cousin too, but I don't know her that well. Her name is Patty. And this is actually parked in her driveway, barely fitting in the driveway, by the way, in Palm Bay, Florida. So that we're down along the Atlantic coast. Today we actually went over and went near Cape Canaveral. I got some pictures of one of the launch pads. I got to see the Atlantic Ocean for the first time, and I don't know how long. And we kind of just hung out there for a little bit, got some good pictures, cruised around, like I said, played disc golf, met this buddy of my brother Brian's. We stopped and ate at a Burger King. I haven't eaten at a Burger King in forever. And now, like I said, I'm here at a house in the RV doing the show for you. And I made sure that the tablet was all charged up and everything. Because to actually plug in power, like you'd say, like a house outlet, you have to turn the generator on, which is a little loud. We want to do this in this neighborhood. So the tablet's all charged up. I think it's going to be fine. And will get us through this live show tonight. So after the live show is done tonight, of course at 11 o'clock, we're going to head out of here and probably head back up toward, the western side of Florida. I don't know if we're going to take the 75, though. We may take Alligator Alley instead, which is north of there, and you're going like out in the middle of nowhere of Florida. It's probably what we're going to do, and then we're going to pull over somewhere and sleep the night somewhere out there. And I don't know if we'll be getting back. I don't know if I'll be getting back to my place tomorrow night or maybe Wednesday morning. The only stipulation is we have to absolutely be back for trivia on Wednesday evening. So I am doing this show from this RV, and like I said, it's quite a vehicle. I'm here to tell you. I've not had a chance to drive it yet. I think we're going to do that tomorrow. So I'm sitting here, I'm like in the midsection. The driver's seat is just to my left here. A passenger seat where I've been sitting is right diagonally from me. So this is the passenger side, this is the driver's side, that's the passenger side. There's a little kitchen table and everything where I've set up right here. That is to the back where the bed, the main bed is. And I'm sitting on the couch that I slept on last night. But you should know this thing has 3 slide outs, but we didn't do the slide out. This slides out, this section slides out, and then one of the backs also slides out. So that you can make this really, really roomy in here if you take it to an RV park or whatever else. And it's been a trip. I've never gotten to ride in a in a RV like this before, and it is something. It is really, really something. It has a diesel engine. It's an automatic transmission. Like I said, they bought it used. Has about 83,000 miles on it right now, but you'd never know that. It was very well maintained, and it is fantastic. So we're just cruising around. We wanted to do this. Brian and I talked about this for years, doing this, even well before he and his wife ever got an RV of any type. And we'd always talked about doing this, and finally we're getting to kind of get a feel for that. And it's also kind of a test run because he and his wife in May are going to be going out on like for 2 months. They're going to be going from Florida up through Arkansas. They're going to be going up to the Northwest, up into Montana and elsewhere. And so this is kind of like a test run because the RV's been sitting for a while. This is the way to get it back out there. Any problems, any leaks, any overheating, any tire issues, any brake issues, any issues with any of the very complex systems. This is kind of a test run, and I guess I get to be part of the test. So that is that's where I am. I'm sitting in this, my brother and his wife's RV here in Palm Bay. Actually, my brother Brian and cousin Patty are actually in her house, which is right over there, and they knew that I had to do this show tonight, and so they're giving me my space, my privacy, and so I'm just chilling out here in the RV all by myself and talking to all of you. So like I said, I can't see when people are typing things, so now I'm going to have to touch the screen and swipe through to see what everybody is saying here. So bear with me. Like I said, never done this before. Everything, how are you? Miranda, good to see you. Nephew Charlie, of course, I'm Charlie's uncle. Brian is Charlie's uncle. Yeah, me, Charlie, me and Brian on the road together. It is fantastic. Laura, I referred a mom of missing Aiden Clune out of Nevada to you. I had happened upon her on TikTok. Lori, you should know I'm going to be talking to her Wednesday night. I did speak to her, but she was kind of caught up in some things, but we've made arrangements to talk on Wednesday night. I'm hoping, of course, that I can help in some way. Hello, Lisa. Lori, thank you. You're very generous, Lori. Thank you. I have an Unfound t-shirt older than 14 once. Wow. Okay, Lori, thank you. And Lisa, thank you. Thought I'd add the milestone chat here too. Thank you, Lisa. You're very kind. Thank you. And Lori, Lisa, I can't believe I mostly behave. Yeah, you're fine, Lisa. Meant not leave. Yeah, go is good rather. Okay. Go team. Jasmine, hello to you. Stephanie, Glenn, good to see you. Yeah, it is a nice ride, Lisa, but of course it is not mine, to be clear. Kathy, good to see you. Hazel, your clock's changed, okay? Yeah, it is nice. Yes, Hazel, I am in an RV. We Americans love our RVs. Yes, sounds like a good time. It's so far it's a very good time. Charlie, we've had some laughs and stuff. It's been good. So there we go. I think I'm caught up with everybody here. Yeah, Lori, Hazel, everybody is in here. Thank you all for the comments tonight. And thank you, Lisa and Lori, for being so generous by hitting the join button below. I cannot thank you enough. So, like I said, this is I'm going to try to make this as normal a live show as I can. We'll see how that works out. As long as the battery power holds up and as long as the 4G T-Mobile network works, I think we should be fine. So, like I said, I'm on this RV trip. I think maybe get back tomorrow night. We're going to be, at some point, we're going to stop in Estero, which is over on the west side of Florida, and I've actually won some tournaments, disc golf tournaments, so we may stop and play at that disc golf course maybe tomorrow. Maybe. So we'll just have to see. But it's been beautiful. And hello, Charlotte. What's going on with you? Good to see you. Um, so we'll see what happens here over the next like 36 hours. But we're having a very good time. And going to see that Buc-ee's was certainly something. I'd never been in a Buc-ee's before. It was just as amazing as I'd been told. And I did buy some beef jerky there. We were not allowed to park in the parking lot and sleep there. So that's why we had to go to the rest area, which was kind of cool anyway. In other news, so yes, it just happens to be that I was out driving around in this RV when the eclipse occurred today, but really Florida, I mean, we got a little bit of it, but not much. You have to remember that it kind of came up like this direction, and where it was a total blackout during the day is well far away from where my brother Brian and I are. And in fact, it's even more so because we went like down to the southeast part of Florida, which is like as far as you can get away from it, unless you're like in Hawaii or Alaska. So really, we were out disc golfing when the moon was going in front of the sun today, and I will tell you, I couldn't even tell here where we were. But my dad, I didn't get to talk to my dad yet today, but he told me that it got dark enough where he was, although he was not in the full 100% blackout area, that it got dark enough there that his night light outside came on. So, it did black out, I think, in Erie. So he was probably an hour and a half south of where the part of Pennsylvania that was totally 100% blocked. But still, he said it got pretty dark. I remember the last eclipse where the moon went in front of the sun was, I actually happened to be in Pennsylvania when that happened. I think that was 2017. And I can remember my mother was still alive at the time. And I can remember going outside and watching as it happened. And it is certainly weird. It is certainly weird. I have to admit that I thought that all the hype about it was a little overblown. I mean, these things happen fairly regularly. It's not like Halley's Comet, which only goes by like every 76 years or whatever. But, if you've never experienced one before, and we have to realize every time it comes by, it may hit like a different part, and it may not hit of course, we have solar eclipses or lunar eclipses that a lot of times don't hit the United States at all. Other countries have it happen to them, but it doesn't happen in the United States. So I guess it's kind of cool, but it really did seem, my perception is that it was really hyped up quite a bit compared to past times. I'm wondering what all of you think about that. And I want to remind everybody, as you're watching tonight, please give this video a thumbs up. The live show on the road. So I see how many people are in here, and let's see if we can get as many thumbs up as we have viewers. And I realize probably due to the eclipse and everything else, not going to have as many viewers as we usually do. I know a lot of people took off work. A lot of businesses were closed and everything else. So I realize maybe people had some things to do. I understand that some schools were shut down and everything else, so it all seems crazy to me. But I guess that was what was going around. So other than that, by the way, if you're looking at me and saying, Ed, you're looking a little rougher than usual, you have to keep in mind I haven't had a shower since, when was it? Yesterday afternoon. And I did go play disc golf today and didn't do anything after that. So I'm feeling a little rough around the edges, need a shave. And the hair is looking iffy. but this is kind of what I look like after I've played disc golf during the day out here. Although it wasn't that hot out today, we did end up, the course we went to had 24 baskets, so we were out there maybe a little longer than we thought we were going to be. Course was okay, not not great, or anything. So I really don't have anything bad to say about it. It just seemed to be there were a lot of baskets that seemed repetitive. There were a couple water holes that were nice. I love throwing over water to baskets. I have no fear of that. But like I said, a little bit repetitive in some of the baskets, like the same distances, the same kind of shot over and over. I've never, like I said, I never played there before, but they do hold tournaments there in Cocoa, Florida. I've seen, on the list before that they do hold tournaments there. And so I guess it's a fairly popular course in the area, but also because there's not really a ton of disc golf courses in that area of Florida. Like I said, in the Cocoa, Florida area, if you want to look it up on a map. So let's see what everybody is saying here. Mark says 100% totally here. Oh, okay, yeah, right. And if you're in Indiana, like it says your name is, Mark, yeah, that would make sense. Charlotte says she saw the eclipse today and it was so neat. Lisa, 2017 is right. We were 100% blackout in Kansas City, but it was short compared to this one. Okay. Gotcha. Lime, Ohio is where Charlotte is. Lisa says 90% in Kansas City this year, not nearly as cool. Lori says I roll over the eclipse. Yeah, me kind of too. Hazel says I look happy. I am happy, a little tired. Probably going to sleep well tonight. But yeah, this has been something that I wanted to do for a while, and I think my dad is jealous as well. Thank you, Lisa, for the compliment. And yeah, okay, so there you go. All right, let's get into the show, and I think I have enough news and things to talk about tonight, but because, like I said, the circumstances, and usually I work on the live show on Mondays, kind of maybe adding some things, did not have a chance to do that today, but I fully intend to try to do the full 2 hours tonight. Trust me. Maybe first I want to start here. Usually I know that I usually leave this till the end, but I just want to talk about this a little bit to start, and that is this Friday is going to be the Ask Me Anything or the Q&A episode. I think this will be, the third annual one. I think I've started doing them a few years ago in April. I think this is going to be the third one, maybe the fourth one. And I've gotten some questions, but certainly I'd love to get some more. So all of you, if you're tuning in, you're making time for the live show on Monday nights, I know you're a very dedicated Unfound listener. So if there's anything on your mind that you've ever wanted to ask me, of course, I put that little audio clip out like last Thursday night that I hope all of you heard, kind of with the criteria, but I'll go over it again right now. No politics, no religion, and I don't mind asking questions about me as long as it's PG rated. And if it's anything outside of that, it's not getting answered. But you can email me at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, this is one of those things like the update episodes. I don't know how often other true crime hosts do this type of thing, where they just have an episode, whether they're just primarily on YouTube like Buddy John Lorden is, or, like a lot of just regular podcast audio programs. I don't know how often they do this, but it does seem to me that outside of true crime, outside of anything having to do with disappearances or serial killers, like with YouTube channels that cover chess or the movies or aviation or music. It seems at least once a year those hosts do some sort of ask me anything type of show. Sometimes it may be just a live show like I'm doing here, but sometimes it's also they have questions sent to them, and then they just dedicate an entire show, an entire episode to answer those questions. So I don't know how many other true crime podcast hosts do that, but um, as you know, I listen. When I'm not doing Unfound, I'm not doing true crime anywhere else. I'm not tuning into Discovery, ID on Discovery, or whatever it's called. I'm not looking for the forensic files. I just do my work, and when I'm not doing my work, I have a lot of other interests. And so maybe that's why I realize that there are a lot of other shows and other genres that do this. And I thought, I'd like to bring this into what I do. And like I said, I think this is the third or fourth year that I'll be doing this. And I'm guessing probably I will be answering some questions that have been asked before. And there's just those what you may call the stock questions that I get. Well, how did you get into this, Ed? And probably that's going to get answered on Friday. That's kind of just a stock answer because we have new listeners all the time, and it's a very popular question among people who are finding Unfound for this first time, and they're hearing my voice, and maybe they're thinking, man, this is an unusual type of podcast. The episodes are long. The interviews are long. They're very detailed, very organized, and just do it maybe in a different way. Who is this guy with the long hair and everything? I feel like that particular question always has to be answered in every Ask Me or Q&A episode that will ever be done. Now, outside of that, it just depends. I remember, was it the first one or the second one? Somebody asked me, "Why are you single?" And I answered it, and I still remember to this day. I started that out by saying, "Well, how much time do you have?" So it's like I said, it's a little more laid back than the usual episodes are. Of course, we do serious topic here at Unfound. And even the update episodes, which of course we have another update episode coming out at the end of this month. I'm going to have a lot to talk about there. But the Q&A episodes, kind of more laid back, very much more like this live show, very different from the usual podcast episodes that come out every Friday, which I think probably makes sense. But it was important to me in doing these Ask Me Anything episodes, because I still insist, and you've heard me say this before, that I always want to make sure that I'm being very transparent about who I am and what I do and why I do it. And I think that ends a lot, continues to give Unfound a lot of credibility, and I guess me a lot of credibility. And I think that it eventually makes it easier to have people, have families or family members who will come on and do an interview with me for the podcast. I think that if they can hear me just talking and answering questions or whatever, they feel like they know me before they ever talk to me. And I think that's a benefit for everybody. So, and as I continue to say, I like, being that I really don't listen or watch any other true crime channels or anything. I don't know how their hosts feel about it, and I can't say that I've ever spoken to a host about this topic, but I love being able to take all of you behind the scenes. And that's, of course, earlier this year we did an interview with 4 of my assistants. Once again, giving you a behind the scenes, what really goes on. We're living our lives being teachers and accountants and engineers and everything else. Well, while we're doing that, what's going on? Phone, how does it get to be that episode comes out every Friday and these other things that get done? And, and I kind of took that from a lot of maybe going back to the DVD days when they would show, they do, of course, interviews with the cast, and then the cast is commenting while the movie plays, or they may have little vignettes or featurettes about how a particular stunt was done and everything. That's what I'm trying to do with the assistant interviews that were done earlier this year for the first time in about 4 years. And then with the Ask Me Anything episode, of course, every one of these live shows is kind of the same thing as well. You get to experience me in a different kind of atmosphere, a little different from what you hear on every Friday. So, what's everybody saying? Lisa says she loves the Q&A episodes. Thank you, Lisa. Cherie is here. Moderator Cherie. What's going on, Cherie? Everybody's saying hi to Cherie. Just wanted to pop in, say hello, and see Ed in the RV. Got some things I'm dealing with tonight, but I'll see you guys next week. Be safe out there. Okay, Cherie. Yeah, Cherie has some things to take care of for sure. So to circle back around to where I started this section of the show tonight, please email me, unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. Just do it right now. Something comes to your mind, a question, you could do it right now while you are watching the live show tonight, and I promise that it will be included on Friday's episode. I'm not gonna be able to start recording Friday's episode until Wednesday. I got plenty of time. But I do have some phone calls to make later this week. And in fact, the interview that'll be for next Friday, of course, today is the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. So for April 19th episode, I'm actually doing that interview on Thursday. But I have a call to make on Wednesday night. I have a call to make on Thursday night. Always talking to new people, always reaching out. And it continues to be pretty good. Pretty good reaching out and talking to people. Some things have fallen through the last couple months, or a couple disappearances that I really, 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 really thought we were going to cover, and I did a lot of work on them, and then the people decided to back out for this reason or that. I don't think it had anything to do with me or the podcast or anything else. People's feelings changed, people's attitudes changed, but no one is ever banned. We do something like that. It's I'll just maybe catch you down the road somewhere, maybe in a year or two or something. And you should know that's not unusual. There are many guests. In fact, I try to bring it up if it comes to mind when I introduce a guest into the episode, to make people understand, well, I'm just talking to this person interviewing, but she and I have known each other for a couple years. We started talking about this disappearance like 2 years ago. And we finally got around to doing an interview. I don't know how common it is, but it happens, more than you might realize. I mean, there are some guests who I spoke to for like 3 or 4 years before they actually appeared. So even though a couple of disappearances fell, kind of slipped through my fingers, I guess you might say, over like maybe the last 6 weeks, that doesn't mean we'll never cover them or never feature them or somebody will never get interviewed. It's just not happening right now. So, but I've been busy. Like I said, I've got calls to make later this week, and between all of that, I have to figure out how to get Friday's episode recorded. I'm feeling there's going to be some late nights on Wednesday and Thursday, I think is what I'm saying. And putting that together, taking all of your questions and then recording my answers and everything, probably going to be some late nights later this week. So once again, you want to ask me something, man, what does Ed think about this? What does Ed think about that? What are, of course, we've talked about movies on this live show, music on this live show, all sorts of things. You want to ask me something? unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. So I kind of flipped it around tonight, being that, of course, it's a unique occasion tonight that maybe talking about the Friday's episode at the beginning instead of the end. But you can trust me, when we do the live show next Monday, I will go back to putting the next episode at the end, because it just seems to feel right that way. All right, let's move on. I actually have to talk about two polls tonight. I did not talk about the Jaden Carpenter poll last week, so I have to. I'm going to talk about what people decided regarding her disappearance, and then, of course, we had the most recent episode this past Friday where Heather Grotman appeared for the 7th time, and she's so good. I enjoy talking to her so much. I think she does good work, and that, of course, great work, and that's why she appears. I'm fairly, I think by now, many of you know, I'm very finicky, like Felix the cat, remember that? Very finicky about people who I will have on the podcast, people who I will mention their name with mine as far as working together on something. I don't do a lot of collaborations. Nothing against anybody out there. But for me, I really just like to work on my own stuff by myself. But once in a while, of course, this is Heather's 6th time, and I thank her that she has brought to Unfound a few disappearances like Trevelyan Evans and Dale Kerstetter. They're, two of the most unique, confounding disappearances that I think that we've featured. And of course, then on the other hand, she of course brought to, and you should know, she picks out the disappearances. I do not. All I did was say to Heather about 6 weeks ago, I think it's, getting here about time you appear again. It's going to be a year, Heather. Let me know what you want to do. Let me know what disappearance you want to talk about. And she's the one that picked out Jeannie Bryant. I did not. She picked out all of those. So Nylene Marshall, Dale Kerstetter, was it? I always get confused. Daniel Sleeper, Christy Nichols, one of them. Dale Kerstetter, Trevelyan. She has picked out all of those. And, of course, Dub and Chance Wackerhagen as well. Kind of, once again, a unique one where, it's an unsolved murder that's connected to it. Their disappearances. So I really appreciate her bringing to Unfound some disappearances where we really have to think about it. It's not very that straightforward, and it gives us, once again, something to use somewhere down the road should we run into disappearances that are like this very, unique one that I think Jeannie Bryant's is. But I want to start with Jaden Carpenter's. That was of course, the episode from a week and a half ago. And the result was that most people did think that Jaden Carpenter is on that property, Tyrese's property. That's all we really want to say. Don't necessarily want to say that Ty killed her. Don't want to necessarily say that Ty covered anything up. It's certainly possible, given the way Jaden was, that she simply could have ran off and something happened to her on the property, and she just hasn't been found yet. Being that no searches have been done on the property, and Ty and his mother won't allow anybody to go onto the property, it'll be a big mystery until somebody or a group can go onto that property. I don't know when that's going to be, though. I don't know if we'll have to wait till the property is sold to somebody else, or something will happen like what happened with Dennis Bowman, where he committed they figured out he committed another crime, which then led to warrants and going onto his property. Could we run into something like that? Or even we could say that about Carlos Rodriguez with Zoe Campos as well. Maybe. But given the way the disappearance was presented, by her sister Vanna. A large majority of you decided, you know what? She's deceased, and she's probably on that property somewhere. And you should know, I'm not joking around. I'm not being cheeky or anything else. I think you know by now that, I'm not a sensationalist, and I don't say things to brag or anything else. But behind the scenes, I've certainly spoken to guests about very creative ways of getting onto pieces of property where they otherwise shouldn't be, but we never talk about breaking the law. I have never told them to do anything illegal. You just have to get creative. You have to start thinking cliche outside of the box. And like I said, I'm not sure if any of the guests have ever tried any of those things yet. If they have, they haven't let me know, or maybe they're in the process of doing one or two of these things. But we've certainly thrown around some ideas that are at least trying something. And like I said, nothing illegal. So that was Jaden Carpenter. And I will, of course, and I'm going to get into that in a bit, but I'll try to keep in touch with her. And, we'll see what happens. I mean, you have to remember, Jaden's disappearance is very new. And just like the week before that, with Ashley Jones Linden and Jaden Carpenter disappeared right around the same time. We just have to keep in mind that they're very, very new. So we know there's a huge possibility a year from now they may not be found, but there may be more facts to add to the disappearance, to the investigation. As for the Bryant poll, which is, of course, the opposite of being recent, we're going back 75 years. And, of course, now Jeannie Bryant's disappearance is the oldest disappearance that Unfound has covered that is unsolved. Remember, Mary Jane Van Gilders is now solved without a doubt, 100%. So it's still the oldest disappearance that we've ever featured, Mary Jane Van Gilders, but hers is now solved. So now we have Jeannie Bryant's that is now the oldest unsolved disappearance. And if you're wondering which one is number 2, that would be Evelyn Hartley. Coincidentally, also from Wisconsin. How weird is that? So we have Mauston, Wisconsin for Jeannie Bryant, and we have La Crosse, Wisconsin for Evelyn Hartley. So the poll for the Jeannie Bryant disappearance that I posted in the discussion group on Facebook was, what happened? Did Jeannie somehow die in the fire by accident? Was she abducted? Did she walk off by herself at 4 years old? Was there some sort of cover-up? I gave, in the poll, I gave multiple choices. And number 1 by far in the discussion group was that Jeannie died by accident in the fire. And in the think tank, which was conducted last night, and once again, if you'd like to be part of the think tank, I'm telling everybody, you're missing out. I don't know how to put it any other way. Any of the think tank members who are in the chat tonight will tell you that you are missing out. But it is patreon.com/Unfound Podcast that also died by accident in the fire, but I will say that some of the people said it's probably accident in the fire, but, the woman, if this woman really did come by and the way the mother acted, Opal acted, and the way the grandmother acted, still caused quite a few people in the think tank to really, really not be sure. I don't think they may say that Jeannie somehow died in the fire by accident, but I don't know how much money any of them would put on that. And in fact, we had one of the think tank members and I don't know if he's here in tonight, Rockford, who kind of was very open to the idea that maybe the whole timeline of events wasn't exactly the way it's been described. Could it be that Jeannie went missing first and then the fire happened? So she didn't disappear during the fire. She actually disappeared before the fire, and maybe the fire was an attempt to cover something up or something. So we even talked about that in the think tank. But in general, Jeannie dying in the fire by accident was the most common answer. But like I said, I wouldn't say a lot of people were very sure of that. As for me, I tell you about it every week. I write a blog at patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. All you have to do is spend $2 a month to read it, but you get some other things for that $2 a month, including you get the episodes early. You'll get them on Friday or Thursday instead of Friday. I write that blog. I write 3,000 words. I write it out, but I also record it, so you don't have to sit there and read it. It's just like another podcast. That sounds something that might interest you. You don't have to sit there and read it on your screen or anything. I do an audio version of it, and usually they last about 17, 18 minutes, something like that. I also decided that the Jeannie died in the fire, and I have to admit, I think I'm a little more sure of that than the think tank members were. That's just my observation from last night. So, what I also said, though, is that given that we now have, of course, Bernard Rusness and Peggy McKay, and then we have the Sauter children, who I don't think Unfound is ever going to be able to cover their disappearances. I gave it an attempt some years ago, and the family's just not into that anymore. What's clear to me, though, is that even though you can go online, do Google searches about bodies and how they burn and everything, I just don't think yet it is something that is necessarily what we would call scientific. There seem to be a lot of variables. That it's very easy to say, well, it needs to be this temperature, and the fire needs to burn this long. Of course, the problem we have is that we have these fires like with Bernard Rusness and Peggy McKay, or with Jeannie Bryant, in which the fire seemingly didn't burn that long and didn't burn that hot, but these people were still missing. But on the other hand, it really maybe is a lot of logical jumps to think that they weren't actually in the fire and didn't die in the fire. It's it's kind of like, the two bad choices. You have to go with the one where they burn in the fire, but it doesn't seem like the fire could have turned them to ash. But on the other hand, it's hard to reconcile why they weren't there in the remains, in the charred remains of the building or the house. In addition, what makes this, and we did discuss this in the think tank, and once again, this is a reason you should be part of it, is that we got into a discussion about why doesn't this seem to happen in the 21st century? We have to remember Bernard Rusness and Peggy McKay, that's a disappearance from the 1970s. Jeannie Bryant is from 1949. The Sauter children also are very, very, very long ago. And of course, there's not just one child missing. I think there were 3 children who went missing. But we don't seem to have that happen in the 21st century, where there's a fire and then a child is missing or an adult is missing, and there's like a big mystery regarding this. Now, you may think, well, what about Dorianne Myers? Different. First of all, that fire, although certainly would be lethal, and it did kill her pets, that is certainly not a fire that could have burned Dory to ash. In fact, it didn't even barely damage the outside of the house. She was surely abducted from that house. Surely, there's no doubt about it. In fact, that's right. My brother and I just passed Vero Beach on the way down here today, which is, of course, where she went missing from. So we have to. I'm just not sure in that, but that's like in the 21st century. So if you're thinking of that, it's really not what I'm talking about. You're very hard pressed to Google any news in the 21st century where there's a fire and then it said a child is missing. The family got out, but a child is still missing and cannot be found in the remains. So, why is that? And so we got started talking about, is it because of houses being built differently now? Is it because of the response systems faster? Is it because of smoke alarms? We got into that discussion. This is what we do in the think tank. This is how deep we get into the weeds on some of these topics that sometimes don't even have anything to do with disappearances. We're talking about houses. Are houses better made these days? And smoke alarms, you just never know where you're going to go in the think tank with these disappearances. So that is the disappearance of Jeannie Bryant. Maybe you didn't catch this or not, but only one child is still alive. And I don't think that Heather has ever spoken to her. I, of course, have not. So let's see what everybody is now saying here. Shauna. What's going on, Shauna? Good to see you tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Shauna, maybe, I don't know if you're new or not, if you're wondering what's going on here, I'm actually doing the live show from my brother's RV, and it's parked in a driveway in Palm Bay, Florida right now. So if you're wondering, my brother is inside the house with, I guess it would be our cousin, at her house in Palm Bay, and my brother and I are kind of in a little road trip, kind of brothers bonding, I guess you might say. We used to do this all the time when I lived in Las Vegas, when he was a truck driver. This is for everybody. But when my brother was a truck driver, he'd go through Las Vegas all the time. And if I had a couple days off or whatever was going on, I'd jump in the truck with him. We'd go down to LA, down to the docks down there, and he'd pick up bananas, like a trailer, and then take them back. And then he'd drop me back off when he came back up through Las Vegas. And it was always a good time, listen to music, telling crazy stories and stuff. So that's what we're doing here. Certainly would like to include our brother Michael in this at some point, but he is in Pittsburgh, and I really don't know if Sister Diane would really be into something like this. Maybe her son Charlie, who's in the chat, he probably would think, yeah, she's probably not into that. She might like to go for a trip in an RV, but I don't know if she wants to go cruising and tell crazy stories with her brothers. Let's just put it that way. So there's that. So there you go, Shauna, Lisa. Kathy says, I agreed with the majority of the discussion group poll regarding Jeannie. Perished in the fire. She probably never made it out of the house. No mysterious woman and all of that. Yep, Kathy. That makes sense. Marty's in here. Traditionally late, but that's okay. Yeah, Marty's, if you don't know, Marty is into wrestling. Maybe that's all I really want to say. And so it was WrestleMania this weekend, and he's telling everybody what he was doing this weekend, and unfortunately missed the think tank last night. Right. Yeah. Stephanie says, too bad the Sauter family wasn't receptive. I still have that email, Stephanie. They weren't rude. The person who responded to me was not rude. All she said, though, was, it's kind of become more of like a spectacle or something like that. Because they really don't think they're ever going to be able to solve it. So that's, I guess, her opinion. So it's just, why even bother or whatever. It's just become So, it's just become people's fascination now. And so is really doing any more news on it or anything going to really, really help? I think it would. And, if you've read up on the Solder children, there's like a mafia angle to it. I once again, I don't know what to make of it. Seems outrageous to me. But, we would have to talk about those things in an interview situation because they've been so prominent over the years. But you never know with DNA. Of course, we never know. Mary Jane Van Gilder. Nobody thought her disappearance was ever going to be solved. Well, here we are sitting here in 2024. And not only is it solved, it's like 100% solved. There's no doubt what happened. So you never know when good things can happen. Although maybe Mary Jane, wherever she is now, doesn't think it's good because I think she wanted to die and hope that nobody would actually find out her real identity. But, for everybody who was curious about it, they've got their resolution. So you never know when these things can happen. But Stephanie, yeah, it wasn't because of me or because of podcasting or anything. It was just an overall attitude, I think. Marty Head, are you going to take that RV down to Key West? We may. We're still talking about that, Marty, about our plans. The only thing, like I said, is the main thing we both of us want to get back for trivia on Wednesday evening. So it's already Monday night. So we just don't know. Brian's we talked about it. Maybe we talked about just going partial the way down. Maybe just going down to Marathon, Florida, which of course we covered a disappearance there. Jennifer Perry, remember? Which would be interesting to me. But I'm just not sure that's going to happen. He may save that. We may save that for another trip. And I don't think I've ever been down to Key West or anything, so that would be a first. Valerie, happy Monday, all my favorite Unfound Live Day. Yeah, the only Unfound Live Day, by the way. Yeah, Valerie, thank you. Sounds outrageous to me too, Ed. Yeah, Marty. Yeah. The mafia angle regarding the Solder children. Yeah. Ed, do you get to pick road tunes? I'd pick King of the Road. Yeah, Lisa, I know about your musical tastes. We don't really, we listen to a little bit of music, but not a ton, Lisa. Actually, this evening before we pulled in here, I was listening to the Pirate Game on my phone. Brian was listening, we were kind of both listening to the Pirate Game. And I'm guessing when we leave her tonight, we're probably going to be listening to the Tampa Bay Rays game because they're on the West Coast, and my brother's a huge Rays fan. So that's probably what we'll be listening to. We listen to a little music, but really we just do a lot of talking. My brother's a talker. You have to realize something. I know you may think, well, you're a podcaster and you do this live show. You're a talker. And really not. Really not. So Brian likes to talk, and I jump in and everything. So that's really what we do. Although the music may be playing, it's not like we're sitting there in silence listening to it. So Key West is a blast. I missed that place. Been a few years for me. Okay, Marty. Thank you. All right. Let's move on to some other things. Man, we're already an hour. Man, this time is flying by. Once again, if you've not given this the thumbs up, please like this video. Please hit the subscribe button down here in the bottom right-hand corner. I would really, really, really appreciate it. And I'm so glad that we're like an hour into this and this seems to be working. You have to realize that I knew I was going to be going on this trip. So yesterday I was like practicing in my condo back in Clearwater Beach, where I was practicing, setting this all up and how does this all work, because I've never done this before. And I'm glad that it seems to be working. Who would have thunk it? Shauna says, how fun. Love road trips. Is my first time here. Been listening to your podcast for a few years. Love it. Well, Shauna, thank you so much. And thank you for making time for the live show tonight. All right, let's get to those headline items now for the next hour until we are done tonight. And bear with me, I don't have the perfect setup here, so I have to look off to my left. This is my other laptop, which is over here to my left. And this is where I have some things that I need to read. So I'm going to be looking down here. Don't be offended that I'm not looking at the camera. So I want to talk about the LA heist that technically happened in Sylmar, Sylmar, that is looking right now like one of the biggest cash heists in American history. Not just in the 21st century, not just in California history, but in American history. At this point, this is what it's looking like. So, and I'm going to read some, because once again, who doesn't love a good heist? Thieves got away with $30 million in cash from a money storage facility in LA by breaking into the building on Easter Sunday and cracking the safe. Now, detectives are seeking to unravel the brazen cash heist, reportedly one of the largest on record in LA. Like I said, not just in LA, but in the entire United States. Police Commander Elaine Morales told the LA Times, which broke the news of the crime, that the thieves were able to breach the building, as well as the safe where the money was stored. The operators of the business did not discover the massive theft until they opened the vault. Media reports identify the facility as a location of Garda World, GARDAWORLD, a global cash management and security company in Sylmar, the Canada-based company, which also operates fleets of armored cars, did not immediately respond to a request for comment from the Associated Press. LAPD officer David Cuellar, a department spokesperson, confirmed that officers received a call for service at 4:30 a.m. Sunday at a business on the street where Garda World's Sylmar location is. Several TV crews were filming outside the facility Thursday morning in an industrial part of the San Fernando Valley neighborhood, which is about 20 miles north of downtown LA. Aerial footage from KABC showed a large cutout on the side of the building that appeared to be boarded up by a piece of plywood. The LAPD and FBI on Thursday would only say that they were jointly investigating the theft to determine the person or group responsible. The agency sought tips from the public, but they did not confirm how much was stolen or give other details, such as the name of the company. The Times reported that the break-in was among the largest cash burglaries in the city history and surpassed that of any armed car heist in LA. Nearly two years ago, and you might remember this because I talked about this on this live show when it happened. Nearly 2 years ago, as much as $100 million in jewels and other valuables were stolen from a Brinks big rig at a Southern California truck stop. The thieves haven't yet been caught. That's still unsolved. 2 years later. Jim McGuffey, an armored car expert and security consultant, called the Sylmar theft a shock. Any such facility should have 2 alarm systems and a seismic motion detector right on the safe, he said, as well as additional motion sensors throughout the building. For that kind of money, you don't just walk in and walk out with it. A facility should be protected from the top to the bottom and the sides. You don't know what to make of this. It's kind of like hindsight 2020. Garda World has a good reputation in the industry, McGuffey said, but every cash management company has isolated incidents like this that just make no sense, but it happens to the best of them. So this is big. $30 million. $30 million. Of course, that doesn't seem like a lot of money compared to recent Mega Million and Powerball jackpots, neither of which I won, by the way. But still, $30 million. So what I did to kind of prepare myself to talk about this tonight, because like I said, I love a good heist, but I'm not a heist expert. I am a disappearance expert. Here are some things you should know about these heists. Many times, more than you might imagine, the people don't get caught. The robbers don't get caught. Or, of course, like in these heists like this, there are many, many people. Many people are probably involved in this. Probably. As with many other heists that have happened. And we can maybe even think about the Gardner Museum in Boston that got ripped off back early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. They still have not caught the two guys that did that. So we should not take for granted that whoever did this is going to get caught. I don't think there's any guarantee of that. Probably more likely than not, probably it's over 50% that they'll figure out what happened, but there's certainly no guarantee of that, first of all. And we have to remember, and it's weird because I was just watching the movie Goodfellas within the last week as I was working at home, that, in that movie, the Lufthansa heist, where they also went in and stole a bunch of money. Well, technically nobody ever, I think there was maybe only one person who ever actually went to jail for that, even though many, many people were involved. Well, the reason that is because, as you saw in the movie, they whacked all the guys. Everybody who took part in that eventually got whacked, so no wonder they didn't get caught. What also you should know about this type of heist is that many times they don't get even close to a majority of the money back, or the jewelry back, or whatever, gold bars or whatever it is. Now, and of course, with art heists, there's still a lot of art out there that is still missing. But when it can be something like dollars that can be spent and everything, a lot of times they may catch people, but the money is never found again. It's somewhere, might be in some bank account under a fake name, or buried in a yard somewhere or something. But we should not take for granted that even if the people who are caught or who did this get caught, that all of the money, or even close to all of the money, will be found. And in fact, I was reading something. There was a gold heist. I don't know if it was here in the United States or maybe it was in England, but they never found, they only found a little bit of this gold, of this huge gold heist. And in fact, what they believe happened was that the gold was melted down and laundered and everything, and turned into jewelry. And there's a belief still among law enforcement for that gold heist that a lot of that gold became jewelry, and probably a lot of people are wearing the actual gold that got stolen and don't even know it. Just they bought it legally, but this piece of jewelry or ring or earrings or whatever else was actually made out of the stolen gold, and the people don't even realize it. So this is what can happen in that type of situation. And so even with something like this, with $30 million, once again, in cash, it's not cash that's marked. It's not cash that would have one of those ink things in it that would let people know, oh, this money was involved in a heist of some type. They just got away with this. Now, I will say regarding this that, and I'm going to come back to, is there anything from these types of heists that we can apply to disappearances? It's very important. Of course, this is what we do, disappearances here. I think there is. But I don't think you need to be a heist expert, a bank robbery expert, to think that this was probably some sort of inside job. But you should also know that just because it's an inside job and it's proven to be an inside job, you'd be amazed at how many times still nobody goes to jail. I was a little surprised. Like I said, I was just did some quick reading. You can go to like Wikipedia if you want to trust it. And they have a list of many, many heists and robberies there. And you're going to see that, the way we perceive these things being investigated and resolved is not exactly how it usually goes. And even sometimes that maybe they do catch the inside guy or woman, and obviously the person had help, but nobody else ever gets charged. It's fairly common. So But it does feel like an inside job, given the intricacy of it. What they actually did was they broke in um, through the roof and somehow were able to get into this safe, like it said in the article, without ever setting any alarms off. How do you do that? And I was reading in one of those heists that it was an inside job, but it was actually done by a guy who had been fired. He actually planned to get fired, it seems, so he could take part in this heist. So maybe they should be looking at this. Garda World should be looking at employees who have been maybe fired over the past 6 months or something. I'm sure they're doing that. Do they have any video? Are they going to, like sometimes we talk about, are they going to check cell phone towers at the time to see whose cell phones were pinging off the local tower, and can any of those phones be connected to anybody with a felony record or something like that? Or if they had a bunch of phones that seemed to all go in the same direction and ping off the same towers, then that might be that there were a bunch of people who were together, and then they might start looking at those people for doing this. But of course, we also might think about the movie Heat. Remember that movie with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino? I have to admit, I'm not the biggest fan of that movie. I think it's a little overrated myself. And in fact, I think, except for Michael Mann doing Miami Vice, I've always been of the opinion Michael Mann's a little overrated as a director and writer and everything. But of course, in that they got a big LA heist. A lot of people involved, of course, with that. They didn't do it secretly. They did it very in everybody's faces with guns and everything else. That big shootout in I guess it would be in the middle of the movie. I don't hope I'm not ruining that for anybody. But getting back to what can we learn about disappearances by looking at this. This is what planning looks like. This is what a planned operation looks like. And so you know me by now. Of the disappearances that I think were foul play that Unfound is covered, and like I said, I think the numbers are right around 65%. Very, very few of those were planned. Very, very few. Now, however, what are some that might have been planned? Certainly, being that I just mentioned her name about, a half hour ago or something, Dorianne Myers. Dorianne Myers' abduction and disappearance was certainly planned. Certainly. No doubt in my mind about that. I would also say, being that I mentioned his name earlier, and being that Heather Grotman was the past guest, this past Friday, Dale Kerstetter's was planned. I'm still convinced, unfortunately, that Dale actually was part of the heist of that platinum, and I think that his partner double-crossed him. Pretty sure. Pretty sure. I do not think that he was an innocent bystander that night back in the 1980s when that Corning glass plant got broken into. I don't think so. I know a lot of his family's still alive. I'm not here to offend them or anything, but that's just the way I think about it. But that was certainly planned, probably by Dale and whoever the other person was. And then the other person turned the table on Dale. So that was the one that's planned. But like I said, for the most part, I'm inclined to believe that these are crimes of passion. I think that, a lot of these, the man said types, where it seems like probably the man killed the woman and she's missing, and the guy's like, well, I just have no idea what happened to her. I believe those are crimes of passion. That guy did not wake up that day planning to kill the woman in his life. He certainly did not. But things just went that way. I think my personal opinion, my perception of the true crime community is that too many people get caught up in disappearances that are planned. I think what the stats show, what our experience shows after 320 some disappearances, is that very few disappearances are planned of any type, whether they be foul play or people who, walked off or whatever. Now, if we, maybe Devin Bond, yes, very, very sad that the boy committed suicide. That was certainly planned. But even though for those ones where we don't even suspect foul play, where we might look at somebody like a mental health issue, maybe like a Renee Lamanna, or drug issues like Noah Davis, I don't believe these people planned to go missing. They just happened to go missing. So when you ever start thinking about, was this disappearance planned or not, you should probably maybe start to school yourself on heists. Because you know what? Heists are definitely planned. Because the people want to get away with it. Even if it just means the guy that goes in and slips the note to the teller saying, I have a bomb, give me all your money or I'm going to blow it up. That's a plan. That guy thought this out. I'm not saying it's going to be successful, but that's a plan. And some, a lot, of course, unfortunately, a lot of times that kind of situation works, at least the first time. So keep that in mind when you start thinking about planning. Now, see, being that I just recently appeared, let's see what everybody's saying here, first of all. Welcome, Miss Shauna. Okay, Shauna. Jasmine says, I think the robbery was a setup that was too perfect. Okay. Gives me less thought. Yeah, you and me thinking, reading my mind. Yeah, I don't think I want to read your mind, Marty. I know you too well. Valerie, question, Ed. The Tropicana just closed, looked up after 70 years. Did you ever go there? Yes. I'm going to answer that question tonight, and I'm going to answer that question on Friday too, Valerie, if you don't mind. I think that's a good one. I'll get back to that. Lisa, thank you for the gas money. I'm going to guess this will get you 12 miles. If you listen to King of the Road on your road trip, I'll donate $10 next week. Well, that might be hard to pass up, Lisa. Yeah, this RV runs on diesel, and my brother says it gets about 8 or 9 miles to the gallon. And you know that diesel is more expensive than gas right now. What are you going to do? And Kathy's commenting on Dale Kerstetter and Double Crossed. So Kathy and I think are in agreement with Dale Kerstetter. So where I was going to say is, of course, recently, I hope you all listened to it. You listened to my appearance on Deep Dive, of course, the Flight 370 podcast with Jeff Wise. This is kind of the problem that I deeply respect Jeff. I was happy to appear on his podcast. I'm thrilled that he came on my podcast back in 2017. I think he makes a lot of good points about Flight 370 and why it wasn't found in the Southern Indian Ocean. I believe all of that. The problem I have, and I've expressed this to him, is that the amount of planning that would have had to have gone into taking that plane the way Jeff has explained would have taken so many people and so much intricacy and everything else that you would think that some spy network, either from the United States or England or France or Germany, Australia, or even China or wherever else, would have gotten whiff of it. You would think. Because as I've explained to Jeff, we have to start thinking about all of the manpower that it would have taken to pull it off if this was planned, if this were planned, to use correct English. Of course, we have to have people on the plane, a couple people on the plane. First of all, we have to have the person that said, you know what, we want to do this. Here's what I think I know. The person who came up with the idea that we want to do this is not the person who could actually pull it off. So that person then has to find a few people who maybe are experts in, in satellites, in computers, in aviation, electronics, everything else. How many people is that going to be? And those people are probably not going to be the people that you're actually going to put on the plane to do this, because these people that are going to do this on the plane are more the muscle types. They're going to be trained and they're going to be given the software and the computers, the laptops or whatever, but they aren't the ones who actually sat down and wrote out all the code and all the, misleading of the GPS and the pings and everything else, all that technical stuff. So then we're already, before we know it, we're like up to 10 people. We're up to 10, at least. And then, these guys, I guess, are the ones that are going to have to fly the plane. So they have to have Boeing 777 experience. And then they have to fly it, I guess, up to Kazakhstan. Well, then what happens? Then you're going to have people who are going to hide the plane. Surely that's not the person who came up with the idea in the first place, or the computer experts, or the people on the plane. These are going to have to be like people who actually know how to use bulldozers and cranes and everything else. So now we're adding in a whole group, another group of people. And then on top of that, of course, being that these pieces of the plane were found in the Indian Ocean on the shore of Africa at some point, then we have to figure out who tore apart the plane. How did those parts get from wherever the plane really did land down? And then we have a whole nother group like of truck drivers and welders and people are going to go out in boats. I mean, suddenly we're talking about a plane that's over 20 people. And you're telling me that nobody caught whiff of this by any other, other spy network. This is, even though I think that Jeff is factually sound, when you actually start thinking about all of the people that it would have taken, there was, I don't know, there was an analogy that I came up with, and I thought it was in a movie or TV show, but I've not been able to find it yet. And it had to do with like a submarine, like this submarine that a country was going to build. Like I said, I think it's fictional. This huge submarine that they were going to build, and it was going to have like airplanes in it and missiles and all of these things. And it got to the point where I thought somebody said, well, you know what? It's going to be so huge that navies, our enemies, aren't even going to have to use sonar to look for it. All they'll have to do is look out in the water and look for the big hump. It's a little bit of a joke, but kind of making a point. This is kind of the way I feel like getting back to planned heist, because of course, what Jeff believes, that it was a heist. Somebody stole the plane, and the plane just happened to have people in it. That it would take so many people that there's no way you could keep it quiet. At some point, somebody would notice something going on somewhere. And it doesn't seem that anybody had noticed anything. After a while, you get so many people involved, you can't keep it quiet. And it's not because these people have loose lips. It's because these people are just doing things that they have to keep secret from everybody. And then people around them, wives and children and neighbors and other people start, getting like, well, what the heck's going on here? This is the problem I have ultimately with Jeff's, belief on this, because this wasn't done by robots. This was done by real people. And you start adding up all the people it would take a huge amount of people to pull off Flight 370 and then do all this stuff. It's just... But then on the other hand, why wasn't it found in the southern Indian Ocean? Hard to say. So, Rockford, hey Rockford, said another art of luring were planned, not a huge category, but perhaps the most interesting. Yeah, art of lurings are certainly planned. Like Tyler North, who was murdered. We all know he was murdered. Of course, his ex-wife and her boyfriend haven't gone to trial yet. But that was certainly planned. You can't get more art of luring than that. Diesel is quite a bit cheaper than petrol here in New Zealand. Yeah, other countries seem to be much more into the diesel thing than the United States is, Hazel. That's true. Miranda says, sounds easy enough. What would the motive be? Well, Jeff has an idea with that, and you should be listening. You were listening to that podcast It has to do with the first attack into what we know as the Crimea. He seems that those things are all connected, Miranda. Once again, I would go listen to his podcast called Deep Dive. Mainly distraction for all the dodgy stuff. Yeah, there you go, Hazel. I need to listen because I don't understand the motive. Yeah, you got to check it out. Miranda, you should just go back and maybe first listen to the interview I did with Jeff way back in 2017, and then maybe you want to partake in his podcast that he's been doing since November. And then eventually get to hear me being interviewed on there. So that is the LA heist. And, something... and by the way, if you're unfamiliar with the jewelry heist, this happened in 2022 at a Flying J, which is a truck stop in California. On July 11th, approximately $100 million to $150 million worth of jewelry, luxury watches, and other valuables were stolen from a Brinks truck within a 27-minute window while the two drivers were at a Flying J truck stop on I-5 in Lebec, California. One driver had entered the building to get food while the other was sleeping inside the vehicle. The merchandise, which had been loaded the day before in San Francisco, was en route to a trade show in Pasadena. 13 jewelry companies sued Brinks over a payout for the incident, and Brinks filed a countersuit, alleging that the companies deliberately undervalued the cost of their merchandise during transit. The incident remains under investigation by the FBI and LA Sheriff's Department Major Crimes Bureau. So, like I said, I talked about this back in 2022 when it happened, but it's still unsolved. And now you would think this would be something that would get solved in like 10 minutes. Not so. And in fact, next week I'm going to be talking about the murder of Missy Beavers. And that's another one. We're coming up on, 9 years now, and everybody thought that would be solved right away. It's still unsolved. I'm going to be talking about Missy Beavers next week. Of course, you might think about this Brinks job from 2 years ago and think it was an inside job. Both drivers got paid off. That hasn't been proven yet, seemingly. How convenient that one goes inside and the other's sleeping, and their Brinks truck gets robbed. How convenient. And how convenient was it that it was parked in an area where there were no video cameras and everything else? How convenient. Yet these two drivers have never been charged with anything. But you should know what what the whole lawsuit is about, though, if you're wondering, is that to keep the amount of insurance down that these jewelry companies had to pay, they claimed that the jewelry was worth a lot less than it was. However, when they went to file their claim as to, this stuff got stolen, so we went compensated by Brinks, they actually bumped it up, to this $100 million to $150 million range, which is not what they claimed in the first place. So that's why this has all gone to court as to what amount does Brinks. Brinks said they're perfectly willing to pay out, what the contract was, but these jewelry people want more. And what it's done really has actually brought some scrutiny on these jewelry companies that got ripped off. Is everybody sure they weren't involved in the theft of their own stuff? This is how convoluted all of this can get. So, there you go. Let me see what everybody is saying here. Yeah, the show. I listened to your interview with him, but that was a while ago, so I'll get a refresher. Okay, Miranda. Very good. Trailers for sale, rent rooms to let 50 cents. I would think so, especially with the one sleeping. Jewelry is very overpriced, Miranda. Yeah, it certainly is. I'm looking at, I am not a jewelry guy at all. Ever. And so, never had to buy a ring for any woman or anything. I know nothing about jewelry or anything, and I'm happy about it. Okay, I want to do, like I said, I'm going to do a follow-up on these two women who went missing. They're two Kansas women, but they actually went missing in Oklahoma. So I want to do a follow-up. Hello, Karen. What's going on, Karen? If you're wondering what's going on here, I'm doing this show from my brother's RV, and it's parked here in Palm Bay, Florida, down here near, near Miami and Fort Lauderdale area. All right. Foul play is suspected in the disappearance of two Kansas women whose vehicle was found abandoned in the Oklahoma Panhandle last weekend, authorities said Friday. Veronica Butler, 27, and Jillian Kelly, 39, of Huggaton, is that right? Huggaton? Kansas, were driving to Oklahoma to pick up Butler's children to attend a March 30th birthday party in Kansas, but never showed up. Tom Singer, the pastor of the church Butler attended, said. Hunter McKee, an Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation spokesperson, said investigators believe foul play led to the women's disappearances based on what was found in their vehicle. McKee declined to say what evidence was found in the vehicle, citing the continuing investigation. Singer did not immediately return phone calls for comment Friday morning, so this is just this past Friday. McKee said the abandoned vehicle was found by Texas County deputies and referred additional questions to Texas County Sheriff Matt Boley, who did not immediately return a phone call for comment. The sheriff's office has turned the investigation over to the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. We're still looking into where and when they were last seen. McKee said no children were missing. Investigators are searching the area in Texas County around where the vehicle was found, according to McKee, about 11 miles south of Elkhart, Kansas, on the Oklahoma-Kansas state line. Huggaton, thank you, Lisa. And but the thing is, I like Huggaton so much better. Huggaton, yeah. Let's hug a ton. And the area is about 260 miles northwest of Oklahoma City. All right, so I did look at the map, where they were going, where the car was found. And I also did a little reading over there at Web Sleuths. The good thing about Web Sleuths is you can kind of get a local feel for there. Usually you'll get people from the area of a disappearance or whatever. They'll kind of chime in with something. And what is interesting to me, now, of course, given that this young woman was going to... oh, you like that, Lisa? You're welcome. Given that this young woman, the 27-year-old, was going to get her kids, it seems like there was some sort of custody thing going on here. Hey, we know a lot of women go missing during the exchanging of children. We know that, once again, it's one of the most well-known kinds of disappearances, the man said. He'll say, well, yeah, I was waiting there in the Walmart parking lot with my kids. She never showed up. I don't know what to tell you. Very common. And for all you women out there, always have your heads on swivels. Don't take anything for granted. I don't care how well you get along with your ex or whatever else and everything. You always have to be very aware. It's the way it is. I know it sucks. But that's just the way it is. But what was established, it seems, is that there's no way that the women could have left where they started, got to their final destination, something of a violent nature happened there, and then the car be found where it was within the timeline. That could not have happened. So, seemingly, it takes the father of these children or whoever out of the equation and be suspected of doing this, simply because there's no way that they could go from here down to here and then up to here in the time allotted. All right, seemingly. That doesn't mean he couldn't have hired somebody to kind of track them down when they were driving down here or something. But you also have to remember, there's a reason that the woman, the 27-year-old, there's a reason that Veronica wasn't going to get her kids by herself. All right, that's something else that I discovered. She asked Jillian, who was the wife of her pastor, to go along as kind of a safety thing. So it seems that Veronica maybe was wary, was trying to look out, for herself, and she thought bringing a friend would kind of help. It's not a bad idea, but we also have to realize that's not foolproof. You very well may be that you're just bringing in somebody else into the equation who could be harmed. You have to remember this. So then what? Let me see what. It was a relatively small window in which they disappeared. It certainly was, Hazel. Contentious custody. So think of the case. It was the grandma said, "My ex is a narcissist. He is in rehab. I'm sorry to. Okay. Miranda said, I'm a jewelry room and I have a nose ring and that's it. Okay, thank you for telling me that. So it just doesn't seem this is a situation where they could have gotten to their destination and they get out of the car and that guy pulls a gun on him, shoots him, and then dumps the car where it was. It just doesn't seem that there was enough time to do all of that, given what witnesses said about when they saw the car sitting there. Of course, what has been established is nobody actually saw that car left there. Yeah, his mom had the kids. He's in rehab. His mother has custody of the kids, and that woman has made threats in the courts. All right, yes, his mom had the kids. It was court-ordered supervision. All right, so I'm right about there was some contentious stuff, and Veronica asked Jillian to go with her because of this. But like I said, once again, it just doesn't seem to fit into the timeline of this being able to happen. Unless, once again, the guy wasn't really waiting for them there and that he had gone and knew how they'd be, the route that they would take. And so he's sitting on the side of the road. They pass him. He pulls up behind them, maybe forces them to the side of the road and something happens. I guess it's conceivable. It seems the father's in court or rehab. So as Miranda's saying, he wasn't even available to do this. So what are we talking about? So either way, whether he's in rehab, the timeline just doesn't work out. So what should we be open to? Well, what also doesn't seem likely to me is that they pulled over to the side of the road because they saw a car broken down. They're on a timeline. They're on a schedule. They're supposed to be there at a certain time to pick these kids up and then bring them back to whatever they were going to be doing. And the odds of somebody pulling over to the side of the road to help an ailing motorist seems unlikely. The grandmother. Mother had the custody of the kids, and that woman has made threats. Yeah, I heard they weren't that far away from the meetup location. Yeah, I know that, Miranda, but like I said, seeing what some people were saying locally there and looking at the map, the timeline just doesn't work out. It doesn't seem to work out. Yeah, but that's a great alibi. Consensus theory is that Ma Barker, grandma. Well, Hazel, that's certainly a theory. But we then have to start visualizing, how that... anyway, we can all come up with theories. Then we have to visualize, how that would have exactly happened. It seems to me to be overtly risky to just attack a couple women on that are driving in a car, force them off to the side of the road, and cross your fingers that nobody's going to be seen. Now, if this happens at 3 a.m, out in the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma, okay. But this was in broad daylight. You would have thought that somebody would have seen something, but nobody saw anything. Kind of like Donald Adelson, there are a few pig farms around, and the grandma's boyfriend is actually, I'm not getting into pig farms and wood chippers and everything. I'm not touching that. Would somebody really plan something out that way? If this grandmother, whoever she is, says, you know what, I really don't want to give these custody, up. So I'm going to get some people to wait for them. You're really hoping to get away with that? The plan to kill Dan Markel up in the Panhandle of Florida seems like a more worthy plan than that. Remember, people plan. We just talked about plans. People plan these things out because they want to get away with them. Four Corners is a very remote area. That may be Thunderbird, but they can't guarantee who's going to be there at that time. And would you really risk the rest of your life on that? And just cross your fingers that nobody's going to see what you're about to do, because you have control of yourself. The people that you want to kill are fairly predictable on their route, but everything else is completely out of your control. Would you do that? It seems unlikely to me. It seems unlikely. So maybe we have to think about this. Was this a road rage incident? Much like we now believe Pedrin Costi, of course, a disappearance in Michigan, that has been established, that the thinking now, and I think from the beginning, is that, and there were witnesses, I guess if we want to believe them, that she was on the road talking to some guy in some sort of maroon station wagon or something. And then eventually her car was found right in that location, sitting there. And of course, she is still missing, I think, over 30 years later. Could it be this was some sort of rage incident? Road rage incident. Did they get on this road and did they pull in front of somebody? And of course, the thinking with Pedrin Koski is that, she tried to apologize. Maybe she was the one who thought she did something wrong. She tries to apologize, and the guy or men weren't hearing it, and they abducted her. A rare type of scenario, but I really don't know what else we're supposed to think regarding Pedrin Koski. So being that, if that's what we suspect with Pedrin Koski, then we have to be very open-minded to that with these two women as well. They're cruising down there, and yes, there's custody issues, but we have to remember, lots of people have custody issues. Lots of people have argument about them in the court, but very few people ever go missing or get murdered because of them. All right? We have to remember that. So, it's still a theory. Just hard for me to put together how somebody would come up with a plan in which they thought they were going to get away with that. So I have to admit, at this time, I'm leaning more towards something random. That this was something random that happened that caused these two women to go missing. And I did read that somebody said a window was broken out of it or something. They drove by and said the window was broken out or something. Maybe even though I usually reject this type of scenario, maybe we're talking about something like a fake cop. Sees two women drive by, pulls them over, something happens. But once again, why didn't anybody see anything? Whatever happened pretty quickly. Whether it happened right at that spot where the car was found or elsewhere, whatever happened pretty quickly, including the dumping of the car and just getting fortunate that they dumped the car there or whatever happened and nobody saw anything. But once again, there's no way the people who planned this could have ever known that. They may know the area. And like Thunderbird said, well, it's a desolate area. That's true. You're going to bet your life on that, though. You plan to do this, and it just so happens that there's a bunch of cars coming through at that time. You're just going to nix the whole idea? What are you going to do? And this is something we have to consider. There's so many variables that are out of their control. This is why when we get back to like the heist talk, and with the planning of the heist, this is why these people try to control as much as they can. They get to know the building. They get to know how much money is going to be there. They get to know what kind of safe it is, and all of these things. There's certainly still things that could be out of their control. certainly, but you try to narrow it down as few variables as well. Thunderbird, it was a hit. All right, I'm not here to change anybody's mind. All right, I'm just telling you how I look at it. So, the question I would have, though, is, did this grandmother or the rest of that family know that Veronica would be going down there with somebody else? Was this a common thing? Was this the first time that Veronica went down to get her kids with a friend? Was it the first time? Was it the 10th time? Could they have predicted that? So, we also have to remember, even though random crimes are much rarer than crimes between people who know each other, in a country of 330 million people, that still adds up to quite a few crimes that are random. She said they had to have someone with her. Okay. All right. So if this was planned out, they were buying into the idea that they're going to have to kill a stranger too. Hello, Fairy. Just got off work on the West Coast. All right, Fairy. And you're probably wondering, what are you doing? Where are you, Ed? Well, I am sitting in my brother's RV. I'm on a little road trip with him. So that's the update. Of course, there's a lot of things we don't know. We don't know about the status of the car. We heard, some witness, I guess, said that a window was broken out of it. Could have been, was that done by a bullet or whatever? We just don't know. Yes, Grandma knew, court ordered. Hazel Julian was specifically approved to accompany. Okay. Seems, I guess what I'm saying is, when Dan Markel got murdered, which I guess, some of you are thinking is kind of the same thing as what went on here. It was very obvious to me early on that was planned. Simply because somebody was waiting in his driveway for him. That they knew where he was going to be. Whereas trying to track down somebody driving from point A to point B and just taking, sheer luck, there aren't going to be other cars around, seems a lot riskier. And that's why I'm not defaulting to it like I did with Dan Markel. That's why. Of course, we don't know any phone information. They're keeping the status of the car. Were there bullet holes in the car or something? It also seems a little crazy to me if this was something that was planned. They just left the car sitting there on the side of the road where they knew it would be found within minutes. Okay. Just my 2 cents. All right, finally, let's just get to a couple maybe unfound things, and I'll finish up with Puff Daddy and the problems that he is having. Last week, what was the date? Thursday. I actually had a conversation with a company that arranges speaking tours for people. In fact, they also manage bands. So if a band's going to go out on the road, this is a company that, picks out the venues and organizes these types of things. Well, there is a speaker, a true crime speaker, who's going to be coming to Clearwater at the end of this month. And so what happened was I was looking at, or any of the bands that I would be interested in seeing coming up. I'm looking through lists and I came upon them. I was like, well, what's this? And so I did buy tickets to it. But I looked up the company because, of course, this is something that I would like to do. This woman who's doing this speaking tour on serial killers, she's going from city to city, and people are buying tickets to hear her speak about, or see her speak about serial killers. And I'll be honest, I'd never heard of her before. So I figured, this is something I'd like to do. So I contacted the company. I actually had a talk with a person from this company was it Wednesday morning or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, some time last week. And it was fairly productive. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere. But this is something that they're starting to get into, is what the guy told me, that they pick out certain genres of true crime or whatever. And, they get these experts to kind of go around and do these, I guess, shows. And like I said, the show that's going to be coming to Clearwater is one on serial killers, and I will be there to see it. It's actually in the same theater where I saw Glenn Hughes perform the first time with Yngwie Malmsteen, a very cool theater, and actually it's the theater where I'll be seeing Mr. Big come June. So it might happen. I'll keep you posted. I would certainly like to do something like that. Going from city to city and talking about disappearances in some sort of intimate show type of atmosphere, but of course keeping it non-sensational, keeping it very factual and very grounded. So we'll just have to see what goes on there. And the other thing that I've started reaching out, there's, of course, a lot of guests that I've not talked to in a while. So I've started actually going through my list of guests and reaching out to every single one of them, at least a couple per day, emailing them or messaging them and telling them, hey, I know we haven't spoken for a while. Just wanted to check in. You want to talk again? Anything you'd like to discuss? What's going on? And so I've started doing that. It's something I've been meaning to do for a while. Like I said, there are some guests that I talk to all the time. But then there are many that I haven't spoken to for a while for whatever reason. So my goal is to reach out to every single guest of Unfound over the next couple of months, at least a couple a day. Of course, we have like 300 some of them now. So it's going to take me a little while. But, so that's something, just not going to let it happen by chance, going to actually reach out. So, let me see. Hazel says, Jillian was specifically approved. And two women, hopefully someone gets loose lips. Robert, Jillian may have thought it was a nice favor, but not truly dangerous. Maybe that's a good lesson for all of us. If a parent asks you to be asking for security, be prepared the absolute worst, right? You're talking about another Washington State child custody. No, I'm talking about these two women who went missing in Oklahoma, Ferry. That's a good idea, Ed. Yes. Hey, they couldn't manage a talking stint for you with a rock song at the end. Two birds, one song. Okay, Hazel, thanks. All right. Very quickly. Sean Combs seems to be in some trouble. Just within the last year, of course, he's been accused of battery. He's been accused of sexual harassment. And now he's being accused of even sex trafficking. And, taking women and expecting them to have sex with other men. If they don't, they get beat up and all of this. And, of course, he's claiming none of it is true. But it does seem, I was reading an article about what this is doing to his business, interests. And a lot of companies are backing away from him. And there's even thoughts out there that all this partying and everything he's doing, he can't afford it. And he may already be bankrupt. He's spending way more money than he is taking in. But it does bring about the question, because I know it pops up here on more maybe the conspiracy side of true crime, of is there a contingent of rich, famous people who are involved in sex trafficking? Now, I realize when we think of sex trafficking, what do we think of? I think we think of like a lot of maybe middle class or at least lower class people here in the United States. We may think of very, very, of course, horrible parents. We think of, people who have seem to be regularly, very regular, everyday people. But then behind the scenes, they're doing this, they're doing that. They're going to child porn sites and everything else. And we know this all to be true. But in addition to that, is there something out there among the rich and famous? And you can Google it out there. A lot of people believe in this stuff. Is this a sign of it? I'm not really convinced of that. Certainly, I believe there certainly have been famous people who have gotten caught marketing in child porn. One of the guys that comes to mind is, what was that? Oh my goodness. So what was the show called? Seventh Heaven or something like that? That actor, he got in a lot of trouble for that. The guy who played the principal in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, he was also an actor in The Hunt for Red October. He was also in the movie Amadeus, if you remember. Forget what his name is. But he got caught. He got in a lot of trouble. And so, this does happen where famous people... Stephen Collins, thank you, Kathy. Yes, he got in trouble for child porn and maybe also even being physical with kids. But then... So this does happen. And then we know about this sex cult. There were a bunch of actresses who were involved in it. They were kind of, I guess you might say, they were brainwashed, but maybe not. That were involved in recruiting other women to be a part of the sex cult, and they were being controlled. And the only guy that was allowed to have sex with them was the leader of this cult, that what was called Nixum or whatever it was called. These things do exist. But when you start talking about like something organized, and where rich people are getting together in their Beverly Hills mansions and things, it just seems a bit outrageous to me. Once again, this goes back to, well, with all these people involved, you'd think that somebody, would say something. There would be somebody who would be invited to one of these parties by accident, who would run into everything that they saw there and got the hell out and then, did the right thing. It just doesn't seem like this has ever happened, which then tends to make me think there's not something organized regarding this. Even though, once again, you'll see all sorts of people writing and talking about this. I think maybe just because they don't have anything else to do at 3 a.m. So do I personally think that Sean Combs... I think he's certainly possible. I think it's possible that he was doing what he's accused of doing. He just doesn't seem like a very good guy to me. You just described the storylines in True Detective. I've never seen that show, and I didn't even know that. Of course, once again, makes great fiction. Makes great storytelling for a movie or whatever else. I cannot deny that. But in reality, it just seems like that is something that would fall apart very, very quickly. It kind of goes along the lines that they're back, I don't know, was it in the 1980s or 1990s? A bunch of models were claiming that, they were being told that they were going to be taken to the Middle East for these shows, but they get over there, and actually what they were actually being sex trafficked and anything. The problem is they could never offer any proof of that. And even though they talked about it quite a bit. Now, does sexual harassment happen? Yeah, Harvey Weinstein and the rest of them. But that's not sex trafficking. That's just some dirty old guy who's using his position to have sex with women who are in very desperate positions. This isn't the trafficking and a bunch of people getting together with little kids there and everything. It's just outrageous. It's just outrageous. I'm not saying it never happens, but just in the way I'm describing here, it just doesn't seem possible to me. But it very well could be in this very specific circumstance that Sean Combs might be guilty of what he's been accused of doing. My opinion is he has a very low opinion of women. Between his music and the way he behaves himself and everything else, it just seems to me. So I think that makes it very likely that he's, it's capable of anything when it comes to women. But that doesn't make him a sex trafficker necessarily. So that's my opinion on that. I didn't ever, Veronica, I said I was going to, you asked me a question and I want to answer it before we are done tonight. Where is it? Way back up here. I apologize. Yeah, the Tropicana just closed and locked up after 70 years. Did you ever go there? Yes, I did. In fact, I had a indie film premiere there, Valerie. I did. Back in 2001, an indie film I made premiered in the, we rented out the theater at the Tropicana and showed the movie there. So I was in the Tropicana a few times, not a ton. But even back when I lived in Las Vegas, the Tropicana was not looking too good. So probably it should have been dynamited years and years ago. It was about time. But so I am familiar with it. I knew a lot of women who had worked in the show Follies Bergère. It was a topless show. I ended up knowing a lot of women who worked in that show eventually because I worked in entertainment there. So I was familiar with it. Spent some time there. But not one of the casinos or hotels that I was in the most. In the job that I had at one time, I spent a lot of time in the Bellagio, for example. I was in the Bellagio a lot between like 2005 and 2009, working on their printers and fax machines there. So, and then New York, Luxor, Mandalay Bay, but not so much the Tropicana. So there you go. I guess I pulled this off. Live show done in my brother's RV using my tablet on the T-Mobile 4G network. And so we are done for tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you. And once again, you want to ask me any questions that you want questions answered for the Ask Me Anything question and answer episode this Friday, please email me at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. And that's it. I'm glad I was able to put this all together for all of you. I had a great time doing it. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give you a thumbs up before you leave. Keep your heads on swivels. And you're very welcome, Lisa, Rockford, Hazel. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Charlie, for, I'll tell Brian hi. Say hi to the kids for us. And that is it. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into this very unique episode of the live show. Now let's see if I can figure out how to turn this off. Good night. And this will be a podcast, by the way. It's just going to take me a couple days to put it all together. Good night.